Oversight or open tryouts for the NFL. Good evening, everyone. I'm Haylee Ficuciello, and tonight we ask a very simple question. What exactly do Democrats represent anymore? Because if this week in Newark, New Jersey is an indication, the answer appears to be chaos, theoretics, excuses, and apparently full-time contract immigration enforcement oversight. Yes, welcome to Delaney Hall in Newark, where Democrat Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, or perhaps future middle linebacker for the New York Giants, is now facing allegations tied to physically striking an ICE officer during a confrontation outside the federal detention facility last May. And folks, you almost have to admire the commitment. Most members of the Congress hold hearings, some write legislations, others appear on cable news. But allegedly charging federal officers during an immigration protest? That's a whole new branch of constitute services. According to reports and federal allegations, McIver joined the fellow Democratic Congressman Rob Menendez and Congresswoman Alina Mejia at Delaney Hall after the claims to have received some sort of SOS letter from detainees being held there. Now, naturally, they said they were conducting oversight because apparently oversight in modern Democratic politics now includes screaming matches, confrontation with federal agents, and enough drama to qualify for a Bravo reality series. And let's pause for a second and appreciate the cast of character here. You have LaMonica McIver loudly denouncing greed and corruption, standing beside Ron Menendez. Yes, that Menendez, the son of the disgraced former New Jersey Senate Bob Menendez, who is currently serving federal prison time after being convicted in a massive corruption and foreign influence scandal involving cash, luxury gifts, and allegations of political favors. You cannot write satire this good. Only New Jersey politicians are producing a scene where Democrat lectures Americans about ethics while standing next to a political hire whose father became the poster child of political corruption. It's incredible. If irony were electricity, Newark would never lose power again. Now, let's talk about the press conference outside Delaney Hall. McIver accused President Trump and ICE of breaking the law. She spoke about greed. Greed, that word really jumped out because this is the same congresswoman who has reportedly appeared on television programs and fundraiser platforms allegedly asking supporters to help cover legal expenses tied to the charges she is currently facing. And reportedly, we're talking about legal bills approaching $1 million. $1 million? For this? What exactly is the defense strategy here? Ladies and gentlemen, are we defending a misdemeanor confrontation outside detention facilities or prepping for the Nuremberg trials? Because if your legal team is charging nearly $1 million over allegations tied to shoving and confrontation with a federal officer, somebody is getting very rich here. And spoiler alert, it's not donors. Imagine being an average New Jersey resident right now. You're paying property taxes that look like mortgage payments. Your grocery bills resemble a car payment. Gas prices fluctuate like crypto markets. And somewhere, some Democratic operative is emailing supporters asking them to help bankroll legal bills for a member of Congress accused of physically confronting ICE agents. You honestly cannot make this up. But here's the bigger question nobody in media wants to ask. Why are Democrats suddenly so emotionally invested in detention facilities? Seriously, where is this passion when it comes to New Jersey state prisons? Where are the emergency congressional visits to county jails? Where are the televised breakdowns over inmate treatment in Trenton, Passaic County, Essex County, Camden? Nothing. Absolutely silent. Funny how that works. Apparently, the humanitarian outrage only activists when illegal immigrants become politically useful. That's the pattern Americans are noticing. And Democrats hate when people are noticing it because increasingly the public sees selective outrage instead of principle. They see politicians racing to defend non-citizens while struggling to explain rising crimes, strained social services, overcrowded schools, and overwhelmed communities. And whether Democrats like hearing it or not, millions of Americans are asking those questions, including legal immigrants, including Hispanic voters, including working class Democrats who increasingly feel abandoned by their own party. That's really the core issue here. What do Democrats actually represent anymore? Law enforcement? Absolutely not. Border security? Definitely not. Fiscal responsibilities? Please. National sovereignty? Only when discussing Ukraine, because when it comes to American borders, suddenly borders are offensive. Now look, oversight is legitimate. Congress absolutely has authority to inspect facilities and ask questions. Nobody disputes that. But here's a difference between oversight and political theater, and Delaney Hall looked an awful like theater. The modern Democratic Party has become addicted to performance politics. Everything is spectacles. Everything is viral clips. Everything is outrage content. And somehow, every issue turns into a photo opportunity when Democrats portray themselves as a victim while standing in front of cameras they voluntarily called. It's exhausting. And then there's Congresswoman Eliana Mejia, a self-described socialist, because apparently New Jersey Democrats look at the state's tax burden and said, you know what this place needs? More socialism. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Nothing screams economic genius quite like advocating bigger government in a state where residents already flee to Florida faster than tourists evacuate before a hurricane. And yet, these politicians continue presenting themselves as a campaign of hardworking people. Really? Because working people usually prefer affordable housing, lower taxes, safe neighborhoods, functional infrastructure, not performative detention facility stunts, and fundraising campaigns for politicians facing legal troubles. The truth is, the entire incident symbolized the identity crisis consuming the Democratic Party nationally. The party increasingly appears more focused on defending systems, activists, and ideological narrative than defending ordinary Americans trying to survive. And Americans notice the double standard. If conservative lawmakers physically confront federal officers during the Biden administration operation, media networks would demand resignation within hours. There would be nonstop coverage, roundtables, emergency panels, constitutional experts, threat to democracy, the entire package. But when Democrats are involved, suddenly everything becomes nuanced, complicated, contextual. Amazing how that works. And let's not ignore the timing here. The Democratic Party is already struggling with public trust on immigration. Poll after poll show Americans increasingly concerned about border security and illegal immigrant enforcements. Even many independents who dislike Trump still believe the immigration system is broken. So, what do Democrats do? They stage another confrontation around ICE detention facilities. Politically genius. It's almost as if they learned absolutely nothing from the last election cycle. But honestly, maybe this is who they are now. This is their platform. Maybe the modern Democratic Party truly believes the average American should sympathize more with detainees in federal custody than the struggling taxpayers trying to keep their homes. Maybe they believe ICE officers are villains with politicians screaming at law enforcement are heroes. Maybe they think Americans are too stupid to notice the contradiction. That might be the biggest miscalculation of all, because Americans notice everything now. They notice selective outrage, they notice hypocrisy, they notice politicians demanding accountability from everyone else except themselves. And they especially notice when elected officials start sounding less like lawmakers and more like activists auditioning for a cable television contracts. And at the end of the day, this isn't just about Delaney Hall. It's about credibility, it's about priorities, and it's about elected officials actually representing the citizens who sent them to Washington, or whether they represent ideological movements detached from reality. Because if this is what oversight looks like in 2026, Americans may soon start asking whether Congress needs body cams. I'm Haley Ficuciello, and this has been your commentary desk report for Englebrook Independent News. Good night.